episode 43 of the Calon Yarns podcast. My name is Lynn and I'm coming to you from Cardiff in Wales in the UK, and this is a knitting, spinning, sometimes crochet, sometimes dyeing, but always fibre-based fortnightly podcast. If you are a new viewer, hello, welcome, thank you so much for joining us. And if you are a regular or a returning viewer, as always, thank you so much for coming along and spending some more of your time with me. I really appreciate everybody that tunes in, so thank you so much for finding us and tuning in and watching to see what's happening with my knitting projects, my spinning projects, and general dalliances really in the fibre world. So here we are. It is December the 31st, 2020. There's no need to go into what a year it's been for everybody in any shape or form. Everybody's had their challenges to face, but we are here. We're at the end of the year, and I hope you've had a good Christmas. If you celebrate Christmas, that you've managed to kind of have some good moments over the holiday period, the festive period, although as for everybody, it's been very different this year. But we won't dwell on that because tomorrow is a new year, and maybe you're one of those ones that hates January, maybe you're one of those ones that kind of has to really think about what they want to achieve next year. I'm one of those ones that kind of goes, yeah, it's another day, it's the beginning of a new year, and it can be whatever we want it to be. So I don't put too much pressure on myself, I have to say, with New Year's resolutions and things like that, because otherwise we only get disappointed a couple of weeks in. So it's nice to have a fresh start, but it's not everything. The fact that we are here and we've got our projects and our hobbies is more than enough for me. So anyway, on that note, I thought I would do an episode as a sort of a sweater roundup. I'm sure you are pretty good at keeping all your kind of knitting notes. So for 2020, I had a little look in my notebook. I used the Lane or the Liner magazine knitting notebooks. I find them really useful. I did think I would use one per year, but I don't fill all the pages. They've got lots and lots of pages in there, and they kind of come with this layout with a few pages per project, and then you have, you know, the details of what the project is, what the yarn you used, how much you used it, where you got it from. So it's a really nice way to kind of keep track of everything, and I'm sure you guys do exactly the same in whatever different version you do. So yeah, so I was looking through the book to kind of see what I had achieved project-wise through 2020, so I thought I would share some of those with you. I still have some projects that are languishing away, sadly, but that's okay. Maybe I'll get to them next year, we'll see. But these are my finished sweater projects anyway. And me personally, watching podcasts, I kind of like to see those sort of roundup sweater episodes because it gives you some ideas for projects that you might look at in the future. Projects sort of have phases, don't they? Patterns kind of have phases, and sometimes it's nice to look back at those ones that were popular for a while, or ones that you maybe didn't get round to knit and you think, oh, actually, yes, I'm going to have a go at that one this year. So that was my thought anyway, to bring those to you in this episode. So yeah, we'll go through, I think, from the beginning of the year, from the beginning of 2020, which seems ridiculous to say because it only seems like 5 minutes ago. But my first project of 2020 was the tin can knits pattern done in the Knit by Numbers by John Arbon Textiles. So yeah, it's the Trek pattern, and I have worn this a lot, and it's great to have those sweaters, isn't it, those projects that you do really keep on wearing. So as you can see, it's a little bit bobbly, so I need to kind of attack it really with my defluffer, but it's an Aran weight yarn, and I did it on a 3.5 and a 4mm needle, and I wear this loads. As I said, it's been really valuable at the moment because the weather's a little bit nippy, a little bit chilly. And it's a nice mix of soft, cosy. It's not too rustic at all. It's really fluffy and cosy. So whilst it's warm, because you've got this colour work section here, it's not overly warm, even though it's a nice thick knit. So I wear it around the house. I have quite a cold, drafty house, as well as it being kind of the top layer for going out and about. So yeah, that's the Trek by Tin Can Knits, and it's in the Knit by Numbers John Arbon Textiles range. Colour wise, I have those, which specific colours it was in my Ravelry notes if you want to head along there to have a look. But what I did was, these were 100-gram balls, all these colours, and that can prove quite expensive, can't it, when you've got lots of colours in a colourwork sweater. So I buddied up with my friend Carol, and we kind of chose these colourwork sections, and then we split the balls into 50-gram balls. We did a different variation of the colours, and we both had a different main colour, but that was quite a useful way of doing it, really. So yes, we've ended up with similar but a different colour palette at the top there where we've arranged those colours. So I absolutely recommend those patterns. The Tin Can Knits patterns are really, really easy to follow, and they always come out beautifully. I've done a couple now. So that was my first one, which I started in February and finished in March. So that's quite swift for me, actually, but I suppose because it's an Aran weight, it kind of knits up quite quickly. So there we go, that's the first one. So my second completed sweater of 2020 was the Chauncey Sweater by Isabel Kramer, and this has been one of my favourite sweaters to wear. And for me, this is really unusual because this is done in Isagar Tvinny tweed, in this glorious kind of raspberry red colour. Let me just show you that's the tag. But yes, this has been fabulous. I would definitely use the Isagar Tvinny tweed again. It's a really, really cozy sweater. It is quite rustic, but it's not itchy. I'm quite sensitive, especially around the neck area, but I don't have a problem with this at all. It feels a little bit crunchy, but it's not itchy at all. So I am definitely going to use some more of this yarn. I really, really like it. It's not the cheapest yarn, but I have worn and worn and worn this sweater already. It was on a 3 and a 3.25mm needle, so those of you who've been with me for a while know that this did take quite a while. It did end up being a bit of a labour of love once you kind of get to the body, and Sleeve Island seemed to go on forever. But the fabric it creates is absolutely gorgeous. It's quite, it seems quite open. It's quite light and airy, as I say, but it is really, really cosy. So this has been a big discovery for me. And of course, I've worn and worn and worn it, and it's a non-superwash, and there is no pilling at all. With the Knit by Numbers yarn, there is some pilling on that, and I think once I kind of defuzz it, it probably won't pill as quickly. But there's nothing, absolutely nothing there, and that's one of the joys, I think, of non-superwash yarns, is that it does not pill or fluff up at all. It's really sturdy and hard wearing. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this pattern, recommend this yarn, and I will absolutely be using some of the Isagar range again, I think. And my third sweater of 2020 is the Botanical Garden sweater by Inga Semmingsen, and again, another big love of mine. I haven't worn this a great deal. It sort of feels like it's a spring sweater. I've probably worn it 3 or 4 times, I think. But yes, it's a definite one for the spring season, I think. Once the weather starts to shift, come maybe March time, I think this will be a perfect sweater for that. I love the hummingbird pattern. And this was in some undyed yarn and a gradient yarn here in the blues. Again, love this colourwork pattern. I think I've been really successful with my sweaters this year, and I don't mean that in a, hey, I've made some amazing sweaters. What I mean by that is that I think I've been successful in my choices of patterns. I think I've started to understand what I wear more, what when I go to my sweater store, which ones do I pick off the shelves? Which ones do I grab more than others? And I think what I'm finding is that I'm starting to understand what is a good sweater for me, what I will reach for. And I think sweaters, patterns kind of come and go, don't they? That there's patterns that are in fashion, and you kind of get drawn to the colours or the designs or the yoke or the shape of them, but will you actually wear it? That's the key. Is it going to be something you reach for time and time again? And some of the sweaters I made last year, maybe I don't reach for as often, and so I've started to work that out, I think. So yeah, the two that I've shown you already are definite, and I think this, because it's so light, this isn't a jumper that I would wear to work, say, because it's so light in colour. I'm always kind of worried that I'm going to get some paint on it or some dirt on it, because obviously we're in rehearsal rooms, and often there are sets being built and different costumes and etc. being created around me. So yeah, this isn't a just throwing on to go to work sweater. I think this is a special occasion sweater, and it's important to have those to kind of feel a little bit snazzy in your sweaters. And there is a bit of snazz in this really, because I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the camera, but there is a little bit of sparkle in that blue. So the blue, this one was a gradient in the ball, so you can kind of see it goes from a much lighter blue up here, which is difficult for the camera to pick up really because it's so light, and then it starts to come down into this darker teal colour. This was definitely my teal phase last year. And this, as I say, is just an undyed 4-ply. So they're all 4-ply yarns. And I had a little bit of a mare, if you've been with me, because when you separate for the sleeves, when you pick back up for the sleeves, there's still a little bit of colour work to do, this little pattern here on the sleeve. So because I worked through the body, my concern was that one bit of this sleeve would be darker than a bit of that sleeve because it's a gradient. So I had to kind of go back and forth, and I think I was pretty successful. The gradient is wasn't too steep a colour change, so it afforded me the time to kind of slowly work down the sleeve and not for it to seem like it was not joined up across the body. So that was quite lucky. So I've got some fluff on my face. And then it's got quite a deep rib here by the waist, which just cinches it in. So if you've got any high-waisted jeans, etc., this is a really lovely one to kind of wear with that sort of styling, I guess. 3/4 length sleeves, and yeah, this was on, oh gosh, I can't remember now. This was on a 2.25 and a 2.75. So this was quite a slow little knit as well. But it's nice and cozy, it's nice and soft, and I'll be looking forward to wearing this one a little bit more in the spring. And these hummingbird patterns, honestly, every time I see it on my shelf, my heart sings slightly. It's such a pretty yoke, very different to a lot of the stuff that I've done, which is quite geometrical. That's quite a whimsical yoke, I'd say. So I can't wait to wear that in the spring. And then my 4th finished sweater, which I finished in the summer in August, is this one, the Ranunculus. This is my 3rd Ranunculus, and it's by Cafe Knit Midori. And it's a really lovely pattern, and I know loads and loads and loads of people have done it. But this was my first, was it my first one with mohair? I'm not sure, I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But this was a skein of, I had a skein of baby camel and silk that I'd sort of been hanging on to for a long, long time. And it was a very, very fine, almost a lace weight really yarn. So I partnered it up with a blue mohair that I got at Wonderwool Wales a long time ago also, I think. So it creates this lovely, cozy, warm pattern. I was intending to do it long sleeved, I can see in my notes now, but I didn't have enough of the mohair to kind of do that. But it's been fine because I wear it quite often over a long sleeved t-shirt, you know, the kind of the cottony long sleeve t-shirts. I've put it on top of that sometimes just for a little bit of added warmth, and that works really well. And then today it is a really crisp, cold day outside. I've got a little thermal vest underneath, but this is suiting me fine, and I don't mind having my arms out. I quite often have my arms out. I kind of get quite hot quite quickly, so I quite like the freedom of short-sleeved things. So this has been a really popular pattern, as I say. Loads of people have done it, and I've done it a few times, and it's a real go-to. And I do have in my stash another set of fingering yarn and mohair match. I can't quite remember what colour it's in. I think it's in like a raspberry colour. To either do another one of these or to do a love note, which is another popular pattern, the same sort of thing, a little bit of a lacy yoke, but is a fingering weight yarn paired up with a mohair. But I don't know, has the phase gone? Will I wear it? I'm not sure. Maybe I'll take it out of my stash and it'll make me decide what I want to do with it. But I think I might have a little look at some other patterns. I do fancy doing a love note, which, as I say, is a similar sort of construction to this, so maybe I will go back to my stash and decide that yes, I will honour what I bought it for and do that love note. But there's a few projects lined up for that, I think, at the moment. We're all the same, aren't we? But there we go. But yeah, another, like I say, a successful knit for me, because I do wear it quite a bit, and that's the gauge of success, isn't it? If it's always at the back of your wardrobe, what's the point? So yeah, my Ranunculus by Cafe Knit Midori. Yeah, Cafe Knit Midori? Knit Cafe Midori. I'll put it down below. So my fifth finished knit for 2020 was this, the Ironwork Tea by Diana Waller. And this is a bit of a triumph for me because the blue yarn there is my own hand spun. It was hand spun from fibre that I bought from the Fibre Hut in Evesham. And yes, it was a real sort of, I'm just going to give it a go. I'm going to spin this yarn, see what happens, and then see if I can make a garment out of it. And I am so pleased with it. It is quite a light open work, open texture. Pretty much, I would say, probably light fingering weight I think I ended up with. And then this red here is the leftover of the Twinny Tweed from the Chauncey Sweater that I made. So it was a great little match in terms of thickness of the yarn. But yeah, I haven't worn this as much as I thought, and I think it's because it's a little bit shorter than I would have liked. So it sort of has to go over a longer top, and I haven't really got anything to go under it. I need to get hold of another couple of maybe cream long sleeve t-shirts or a blue long sleeve t-shirt to go under it, and I think then I'd be able to pair it up quite nicely. It fits beautifully, other than the fact that it's just a little bit too short, which is a good learning curve. I've got lots of yarn left over, so I could, was it a top down? No, I think it was a bottom up actually, which often happens for me anyway. If I'm doing a bottom up, I often kind of make them a little bit small. I sort of, I can't really gauge the length between the underarm and the body that's right for me. I find it top down much more comfortable. I'm much more able to gauge the top down sweater because I can try it on a little bit more easily. But yes, but I still love it, and I love the fact that it is a hand spun. It is, I can't remember what the fibre is. No, but it was on a 3.5mm needle. And it achieved the pattern as it should have been. This little section here should be a bit longer, but I only had this amount of red, so I sort of made it work really. So it reminds me of this kind of blocky flower thing, kind of reminds me a bit of all the Keeley sort of patterns. So yeah, but I really like that. It's a triumph for me and kind of learning to spin, so I'm pleased that I was able to kind of get a garment out of that fibre, that yarn. Yeah, so hopefully come the springtime, this will be one that I'll wear a little bit more as well, get a little bit more wear out of this one. There's definitely alpaca in the fibre, that's what I remember. I think it's an alpaca, merino and silk mix, that's right. And I think I've discovered from this, from spinning it up, that alpaca, I'm a little bit sensitive to it actually. So it is soft, but I can't quite wear it next to my skin in the same way that I can with the Twinny Tweed or with the mohair here. Alpaca's just a little bit scratchy for me, so I think having a long sleeve t-shirt underneath it would be the way forwards. Or maybe it'll soften up with wearing, we shall see. But yes, the Ironwork Tea by Diana Waller. And then my sixth completed sweater for 2020 is the Øst Genser, or the East Sweater, and that pattern is by Marta Nielsen, and this has been a real go-to sweater in these cold, crisp days. I absolutely love this. It's a real move away from my normal blues and teals, as you can probably see in my other projects, into this greeny colour, and I absolutely love it. I will definitely be making another one of these sweaters. This shape I really have enjoyed wearing. I really enjoyed knitting it up. It's on 5mm needles mainly, so it is a real quick, chunky knit. And I did it in the Rauma Vams PT3. If I show you the, can I show you the tag for that? I don't know if it's going to show up. 1 second. Is that going to focus? Yes. So yeah, Vams PT3. 100% Norwegian wool, and it's quite reasonably priced, because obviously you need quite a bit of it because it's quite an oversized sweater and it's really thick. And this is lovely. It feels a little bit crunchy, a bit stiff in the ball, but once it's knitted up and once it's been worn a few times, it really softens up, and I absolutely adore this neckline. It fits really nicely, and it's sort of this split rib, and then these raglan shoulder shapings just make it, I think. It's a gorgeous pattern, and it's a sweater that I have worn and worn already. And like I say, I think I will definitely use the yarn again, and I will definitely use this pattern again. I'll probably do exactly the same. I'll probably get some of the PT3 and make another one of these in a different colour, maybe a nice grey or something would be a good accompaniment to my other bits and bobs in my wardrobe. But I thoroughly recommend this. If you want a nice, thick, cosy sweater that's a quick knit and a comfortable sweater to wear, this is perfect. And actually we were out for a walk the other day and it was really quite crisp, and I'm not a lover of wearing coats, so I wore like a polar neck undergarment, what are they called, just a polar neck t-shirt thing, and then I put my Chauncey sweater over the top of that, and then I put this over the top, so I had double layer of natural non-superwash fibres, and I was as toasty as anything. So yeah, this has been great. Definitely make another one of these. Yes, and then really just to talk about, that's all my sweaters that have been completed. I've got one more sweater on the needles, which I'll talk about in my next podcast, and I've got one that I'm about to cast on. This has been sitting there waiting for the time, and now is the time. So my next podcast I will talk about what I've got on the needles at the moment and what I plan to do over the next couple of months really. But talking about sweaters and the superwash and the non-superwash fibres, in terms of storage, and I know that I had a little bit of a panic last year when I took one of my non-superwash sweaters out of the wardrobe and there was a couple of dreaded moths in there. Oh, the drama. But I think I managed to nip that in the bud pretty quickly by getting them all out and getting some mothballs and kind of keeping them in the light, etc. So the way I store my sweaters now, and I know I've been really interested to find out how other people do this, but I store them in the daylight. So they don't go in my wardrobe. I have like an open shelving unit, and they get folded up, and I put some of the kind of the cedar wood balls in between the layers of sweaters, so they're not in the dark. And I think from what I can read and from what I gather from other knitters, that's the key, that they're not tucked away in the dark, because that's where the moths get attracted to them, go in there, burrow in there, lay their eggs, and that's the killer. The eggs, I think, is the big thing, rather than the moths themselves. So yeah, that's what I do. I keep them out in the daylight with those mothballs or those cedar balls in between the sweaters, and they look really pretty as well when they're folded nicely. They look really good, and you can kind of think, well, that's how much time and effort has been placed into that. It's almost like a piece of art, the shelves with those sweaters on. So that's quite nice too, to kind of see what you've done, have a visual representation of the hours that you've spent, and the creativity and the craft and the skill that we're all learning. You know, every project brings about a new skill, or so you learn something new, or you develop a certain skill. So it's quite nice to see that in its practical, physical form. So yeah, so that's how I store my sweaters. And washing wise, probably a couple of times a year maybe, and I've definitely taken the tip on a day like this that is bright and crisp and very frosty this morning, is to hang those non-superwash sweaters outside for a few hours, just so they kind of pick up that dampness, but they don't kind of get wet or sodden, and they can kind of get cleaned a little bit that way. Yeah, so in terms of what I've made this year, I've been really pleased that I've got a few sweaters that I've not only completed but that I wear a lot, and that's the key for me, is do I grab them from my shelf, from the wardrobe, do I wear them? And yes, this year I think I wear more of my makes than I have done previously. In terms of other projects, I keep looking over there because that's where they are. I've still got a few projects languishing in project bags that I sort of need to decide, what do I do with them? Maybe that's the thing that we do in the new year, is kind of go, right, what do I do with those ones that I haven't come back to? I've got a really, really beautiful brioche shawl that I really, really love and I really want to wear, but it just is quite a commitment in terms of following the pattern. But I really want to persevere with that one, so I don't think I'll be pulling that one back and reusing the yarn, because I dyed the yarn specifically for that project, which I think is in a previous podcast somewhere. Maybe I'll put it up here if I can find the one. So yeah, revisiting some of those projects, but I will catch up more about that in my next podcast, where I'll show you what I've done over the Christmas break, as well as what I have on the needles at the moment and what I plan for the future. So I hope you are all well. That's enough from me blathering on. Yes, it's with the time of year where we start to bring down the Christmas decorations if they've gone up in your house. Everything sort of gets tucked back away in order to be ready for the next couple of months. And hopefully, with things the way they are, with vaccines possibly happening and being rolled out, certainly here in the UK and I think many other parts of the world as well, we can maybe seem to be turning a corner pretty soon, and that would be wonderful, because it's just it's a never-ending drama here in the UK at the moment, as I'm sure it is for a lot of you around the world. But I hope you are keeping safe, I hope you are keeping well, and I hope you realise what a joy it is to have a hobby to keep us through these difficult times, because it certainly kept me going, that's absolutely sure. I will leave it there, guys, so thank you so much for spending some time with me, and I will catch up with you all in the next podcast. Diolch pawb, take care, hwyl fawr, bye.